welcome to yet another installment of No Smoke, Just Vapor. Today we are talking about a very important topic that has been making headlines across the world. The issue of waste management and how to dispose of waste for all industries. But for this particular episode, we'll be focused mainly on vaping products and the disposing of those products. We are joined by Malcolm Whitehouse from an organization called IWASA. Malcolm, welcome.
Thank you very much, Sanda, and happy to be here and hope I can shed some light.
Yes, definitely.
On what we do.
Yes. Can you, just to start us off, can you tell us more about what IWASA does as an organization?
Okay, so my name is Malcolm Whitehouse. I'm the operations executive in charge of EEE, which is electronics and electrical equipment, lighting and portable batteries. So IWASA stands for the EPR Waste Association of South Africa, and we're registered in EEE lighting, portable batteries and paper and packaging products. We were established in 2008, and we've engaged with all the different stakeholders, from producers through to recyclers, academia, government, etc., in order to enable and establish viable recycling solutions within the sector for those four categories of products. And if we hone in on the vaping products, obviously there's a very big demand for recycling because of the different content found within, from the plastics to the lithium batteries, etc. And as IWASA is a registered product or producer responsibility organization with the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, or DFFE for short, under the Section 18 Producer Responsibility Registry, it is our duty to bring the producers and the recyclers together. So what we do is, under the EPR regulations, the EPR regulations are specifically the extended producer responsibility for the producer. So whoever manufactures the product, produces it, imports it, or manufactures it in country, they have an obligation to ensure that it's managed at end of life, of the economical life cycle, or at the total end of life for recycling, and it's a cradle-to-cradle approach.
So then the word producer does not necessarily mean the person who makes the product only. So you've said if you import, just explain that.
Yes, so the producer could be in Europe somewhere, but a company in this country would be importing it under a brand. So it's the importer, it is a producer, whether they do it here or overseas. But if they have a brand owner here who takes responsibility, then that extended producer responsibility will fall on the brand owner. So just typically, if I import it on behalf of XYZ, then and I assume responsibility for the product, then I will be the brand owner and I will be responsible. If it's a XYZ imports it under their own company name XYZ in South Africa, then they would. So it's very important to understand that, because we need to determine the point of payment, who pays for the actual producer responsibility, and I can expand on that for you.
Yes, and that's an important one, because I think when you hear the word producer, you automatically assume manufacturer, so the person who has made those products. So from a South African point of view, Malcolm, vaping products have been around for quite some time globally, and in South Africa I would say about the past 8 years. Why the sudden, I'd say not interest, but why the sudden urgency, to get into the space of vaping? What are the challenges that you are seeing in the space?
I think the big challenge is if I can take a step back in terms of the electronic waste. Electronic waste is the fastest growing waste stream globally. We place 54 million tons of e-waste on the market annually throughout the world, and only around 20% of that is being recycled. In South Africa, we place about 415,000 tons per year, of which only 7 to 12% is recycled formally. So the problem is, because a lot of the products contain elements that are toxic or hazardous to the environment or to human health or to both, they have to be managed responsibly. So what happens is, typically you may find an informal waste reclaimer collecting a product in a landfill site or wherever they pick it up from, and then they burn it just to recover the copper, which they sell to a scrap metal dealer. And they expose themselves to all the hazardous toxins and stuff that come just from the burning part. That's just the one example that I can give.
Okay. So when you take a vaping device, it has different components, and obviously you would need to dismantle, when you get. So just tell us about the process of dismantling vaping devices, and if every component is recyclable or not, or what are the challenges, once you've dismantled vaping devices.
So if I can take a step back again, just to understand the EPR regulations. EPR is extended producer responsibility from cradle to cradle, to cradle to cradle. The reason for that is in the linear economy, when we made a product, we manufactured it, it was sold, the consumer used it, and they threw it away at end of life. That was the linear economy.
Yes.
Now we're looking at a circular economy where we're recovering the secondary resource materials to use them over and over again, maybe in the same plastics or in a different type of plastic for a different application. So the EPR regulations, the importer, producer, brand owner pays a levy per kilogram to bring the products when they're placed on market. That fee is paid to IWASA. We then, as a producer, they then producer members to us. We then engage with the recyclers and we establish SMMEs, we establish collection facilities, we do job creation, we pay for infrastructure into smaller community-based collection points and recycling points. And part of their training would then be to how to dismantle, how to identify the product, how to dismantle it into, typically you find there's aluminium, there's plastics, there's a lithium battery, and there's one or two other components within the vapes themselves. And I'll explain a bit more about that.
So as a producer, so I've got a store, I sell disposable and traditional products. What do I need to do to get into something like this? I mean, I know why it's important to recycle, but I just don't know what to do, because I sell it to consumers, so the onus is on you as the consumer to dispose of it. Yes. So what's the relationship supposed to be like in that instance?
Sandra, that's the actual problem we sit with, because under the National Environmental Management Waste Act, if you buy the device and you use it, you have to ensure that it's responsibly recycled as a consumer. However, the Consumer Protection Act says that if you sell me the device, Sandra sells it to Malcolm, Malcolm uses it, I can come and give it back to you and say, you must please recycle it responsibly, free of charge. That's what Section 59 of the Consumer Protection Act dictates. So that's where IWASA comes in and plays a role. So part of the EPR spend is the education and awareness creation, and then the engagement with stakeholders, be it the retail outlets, be it other recyclers, be it the SMMEs that are based in the communities, to actually develop a network where we can then teach the people, this is where you can go with your spent vapes or the end-of-life vapes, and you can either have the incentive of trading it in on a new one or being paid a small amount. Unfortunately, in this country, we have to incentivize this type of thing, otherwise people just chuck it in the bin. But then our other projects, I can expand a bit more on how we sort of can counter that.
Yes, I mean, go ahead, Malcolm.
Okay.
I think
so
we're in a space where we don't know yet for the vaping
so to expand on your question, as an association, we've found two very, very good recycling solutions in South Africa already, which is amazing for vapes. Both of them, the one company, they just basically taking them in. They have a system in place already where you bring in, say, 10 spent vapes and you get a new one, or they're paying a rate per kilogram to incentivize the retail outlets to then collect them, and then they'll come and fetch them and recycle them. And what they're doing is, on your disposable, disposable and your rechargeable vapes, it doesn't really matter which one. The batteries, the disposable is purely because it doesn't have a charging port, so there's nothing wrong with the battery itself. And they're taking those batteries and they're manufacturing new portable power banks or lighting type products and stuff using the batteries in a casing that they're making out of some of the plastics. The other company is a little bit more advanced, in my opinion. They actually have brought in a recomposition machine, because the actual tank of the vape is an engineered plastics, so they need to put it through this process. Then they're making exactly the same plastic again that they can either sell back to the manufacturer and they can reuse that to manufacture the new tank, or they're doing your safety shoes have got in the arch of your foot has got an insert.
Yes.
And they're making out of those plastics. The guy showed me the other day, the insert, and he says, and the nice part of it is you don't have to worry about stinky feet anymore, because it smells like the vaping product. So, because they can't get rid of that. But he's doing portable power banks. 10 of those little batteries put together is a 1.8 amp hour portable power pack with different ports for charging cell phones and small electronic devices. And then the repurposed plastics or the other plastics is actually making the casing, remolding the casing out of that. And he's got a full solution on that. Anything that's aluminium is then sold back to the aluminium scrap metal dealers and stuff for additional income. But it's literally 100% recyclable.
Wow, that's incredible. And I think from a business point of view, I mean, to hear of such initiatives, it's always very good. But the challenge, I think, I mean, this is from very limited knowledge, is in convincing consumers why they need to recycle, you know. Have you found that that's the bottleneck in terms of why, as a normal person, Asanda here, I don't know much about environmental things, global warming, all of these things, you know, are just above my head kind of thing. Why should I care as a consumer, not just for vaping products, but generally? I think it's an important thing to care about.
That's a very good question, and I want to answer it in two ways. The first way is that something that we actually forget in Africa, we are recyclers par excellence already. You go and buy a paint bucket full of paint and put that bucket out on the sidewalk. I can guarantee you someone's going to take that bucket, wash it out and use it until it's completely useless and broken or full of holes. They're going to go and sell it to a plastics recycler and make money about it. So inherently we have a culture of recycling. I think it's the disconnect between these fancy words, this global warming and greenhouse gas emissions and circular economies that sort of puts people a little bit off. But you asked the question earlier on, or you mentioned it in your question, where you said, where do I go with this stuff? So part of our whole focus is to actually go and educate people, and we need to give the incentive, because that is part of the problem. We live in a culture with such a huge informal sector that those guys are just looking for a means to make a sustainable income to buy food for the families tonight and pay for the roof over their heads. So they're not particularly cared about all this formality and legislation and stuff like that. And if you incentivize them properly, they will then ensure, I can guarantee you, the minute people know there's some value in something, they will find a way to collect it in one way or another.
And for the vaping industry in particular, I mean, this is new to them. There's so many things that are developing in this industry. You've got legislation to regulate vaping products. We've just had tax. You've got all of these acts, you know, that are meant to govern a very small industry, you know, that originally started as mom and pop shops. So the level of, not care, but the level of understanding in some of these issues is very limited. So how do you approach something like this with such a nascent industry?
I think the big thing is, and that's where I wanted to expand a little bit on our complementary projects, if I could call it that. We have a specialist who's engaging with municipalities. He's in fact right now sitting with the minister at a youth summit in the Eastern Cape, where what we're trying to do is, if you look at the informal sector per se, you look at the township economy and stuff like that, there are thriving economies there that are next level, that some of your big corporates can learn from, literally, in terms of how to make money and to run business. But they don't know about the value of certain products. So what we're doing is we're equipping small SMMEs, we're setting them up with infrastructure. So we have a 12-meter container that we modify, and that's purpose-built for electronic waste as a collection drop-off center, and then they do dismantling within that actual container in a secure environment, space that's been provided by either the municipality or a school or whatever the case may be. An SMME that's either been identified by the municipality or that we then engage with. So we give them training, mentorship, support, and we give them the end markets as well, because it's also important. It's all good and well collecting the stuff and dismantling. What do you do with it? So we're saying, okay, this is how you do it, and then we will then find more established, formal, compliant recyclers to buy those fractions off of the smaller guys, because that's where the thing falls flat. They all do this work, and then no one knows where to go, and they go to recyclers that may not be as compliant, and they'll wheel and deal, and they'll inevitably get paid the lowest rate possible. Whereas with a formal recycler that's part of our bigger network, we can say, if any of these community-based initiatives bring product to you, you have to give them X amount. So we can benchmark what they're getting paid, and then it's market related. And then it goes all the way down the value chain to everyone's benefit.
That's incredible. That really is, because then that's how you, incentivizing people, but also access to information when people don't know. So if now a group of vaping businesses are watching this episode, they're not part of the Vaping Products Association of South Africa, and they would like to get involved in something like this, what can they do? Do they need to go via the Vaping Association? Can they come direct to you? What are some of the ways that they can get involved in a scheme?
I would like to think of it from two perspectives. From the Vaping Association, it would be good because there's certain benchmarks that the association can have in play, and they have a record of who's playing in the market and who's not. From a legislative perspective, the producer, importer, brand owner is obligated under the law to register with the department and all of that. And that's where we play the role. So they can then, iWASA in this case, can then say, listen, go and speak to iWASA and become a member of iWASA, and they'll walk you through the process of engaging and looking at a due diligence, what can be done, where can it be done, how can it be done, and then we can work from there.
Okay. Malcolm, there's another point you wanted to add?
Yeah, just the one point I wanted to quickly add was, so part of the SMME development is not just in the communities themselves. The communities are good because they base them in an area right next to a school or within school grounds, like I said. But then we have a program that we're working with in Pietermaritzburg under the YES program. So there's volunteers that are working within that program. They're actually going to go to houses and educate and hand out flyers and stuff like that. But some of our other projects, we're actually placing those containers within the perimeter of a landfill site. And again, it's training them to look out for those products, and you'll be surprised how quickly those people can actually pick up, and then they'll start looking for the spent devices all over. An example of that and of that vibrant community and economy, in Pietermaritzburg, there's about 11,000 people living on the landfill site in a town that has restaurants, barbers, doctors, you name it, within that sector, and their sole purpose is to go onto the landfill and pick and reclaim all the different recyclable products. Because of everything going onto landfill, you're sitting at about 80% of that stuff has got value to it. So now we're adding slowly to the 80% and saying this is another product that you can recycle fully, and that way we're looking at the prevention of lithium leaching into the groundwater, for instance, from a lithium battery that decomposes over time. And we're protecting the environmental and human health.
Which at the end of the day is about that. Malcolm, unfortunately, that's all the time we had today to talk about this. I'd like to invite you again, I mean, next year once this project is up and running, because it really is a very important area. And I think a lot of education needs to go into it, because as we said, when we put in the fancy words, you know, the global warming, the ESGs, etc., when people get, oh, okay, what's this all about? And it really is an area that I'd like for us to explore further. We were just chatting now with Malcolm Whitehouse from IWASA, a very important area of discussion on how to dispose of vaping waste in South Africa. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch. And if it is your first time, please do like the video, subscribe, share with friends, and we look forward to chatting to you again in our next episode.